Get ready, and we'll call to order this City Commission special meeting for the purpose of discussing parts of the budget for GRU. Madam Clerk.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have adoption of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and second to adopt the agenda. I see no lights. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes unanimously. Madam Clerk.
All right, we're moving on to our discussion item, which is the 2023-792 GRU fiscal year 24 budget summary, with recommendation that the City Commission approve continuation of base rate increases initiated as part of fiscal year 2022 budget. 3% electric, 5% wastewater, and connection fees and lighting increases as covered in the May 22nd, 2023 budget workshop. And at the August 8th, 2023 meeting, the UAB voted unanimously to advise the City Commission to approve the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Cunningham.
Yeah, so Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, tonight is really the wrap-up of the many meetings we've had over the course of the year, starting back in February, and the wrap-up of all the work that staff had done prior to that to lead up to identifying the needs for the utility to continue to provide the service, to continue to renew the infrastructure, and to do that in a way with a business plan that makes sense for the utility. With that being said, the goal all year has been to try to achieve a number of things. One is a long-term plan for the utility to get a hold of its debt and get it more financially stable through that plan. The second goal is, as we went through and worked with the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee and worked with the Auditor General, there was a finding the Auditor General had regarding our debt, and is to have a plan to reduce that debt and to address that debt. And so this budget supports all of those goals. And what you'll see tonight as we go through it is the impact of that is in each system of the utility. So we'll go through that. Tonight, and it supports those goals. The last thing I will share before Mark comes up to give the presentation is that last night we had the same presentation with the Utility Advisory Board, and they unanimously voted the staff recommendation.
All right, thank you.
So with that, Mr. Benton.
Welcome, Mr. Benton.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, like the General Manager said, this will be, if you include the April 13th General Policy Committee meeting where we talked about the new transfer formula, this will be the 7th budget session we've had during the FY24 process for GRU. Our goal here tonight is to kind of briefly summarize what you've seen so far, and also to present the final FY24 O&M numbers in a flow of funds perspective as defined in GRU's bond resolution. So this is just the calendar. Y'all have seen it multiple times. I won't spend a lot of time on this here, except to say what the next steps are. You've got 2 meetings in September, one on the 7th, one on the 21st. You'll be asked to approve the appendix, the schedule of fees and charges in GRU, as well as a tentative budget resolution and a final budget resolution. As I mentioned a minute ago, we're going to go through the flow of funds perspective for the FY24 O&M numbers. This is just a graphic representation of that flow of funds that we'll cover very quickly. You see up in the left-hand corner in the green box, that's revenues, that's sales, surcharges, connection fees, interest income, everything that you would normally consider a revenue. In the rate stabilization fund, if we make transfers in and out. If we make a transfer out of rate stabilization into the operating revenue box, it's an increase to revenues. It's a decrease to revenues if we transfer money out of the operating revenue fund into rate stab. From those revenues, we pay first our operating expenses, and that includes fuel and O&M. The difference between revenues and expenses is net revenues. This blue box on the side is detail of how we pay out those net revenues, what we spend those on, and in what order. The presentations that we've done to date have touched on all the elements of the flow of funds. We went through the development of GRU budget on the for the revenue side. It was on April 24th, Mr. Cam Hooten walked you through this customer sales forecast. And on May 22nd, Brett Goodman, our Chief Operating Officer, did a detail of connection charges and lighting fees. Moving on to the expense side, Eric Walters and his fuels group on May 22nd gave you a presentation on the fuel projections and the fuel budget. And on July 24th, Mr. Goodman, as well as our other officers from each line of business, went through the controllable O&M in fairly granular detail. Back in middle of February, we talked about GRU's debt portfolio, the details associated with that, as well as our financial metrics associated with our cash, liquidity, and reserves. Capital projects impact that flow of funds in two ways through the net revenue piece. One is the debt service that we pay. That's simply the principal, interest, and net swap payments we make on the portion of the capital improvement plan that's funded through the issuance of debt. We also make a mandated contribution to the utility plant improvement fund. It's a formulaic contribution. It's defined in the bond resolution. We make that every year as part of the budget. And those funds are used primarily to pay a portion of the capital improvement plan. It's our internal equity. It's our internal cash. It's our skin in the game in terms of our capital improvement plan. It's an important element. It's viewed very, very seriously by rating agencies and investors. It's something that they want to see in any particular plan. And once again, on July 24th, Mr. Goodman and the other officers walked you through our capital budget detail, based on the line of business. And then finally, we talked about on the April 13th meeting where we worked over the new general fund transfer formula, now called government services contribution. The reduction in that and how the reduced transfer payments would go towards funding a portion of that $315 million net debt reduction that was part of the plan to reach a 70% capitalization rate. And we also talked at the May 15th meeting, the general manager went through the commitment that we made as on part of that April 13th meeting to cut $28 million from GRU's operating expense budget over the next decade. I apologize, this is a little difficult to see, but for the next half dozen or so slides is going to be the numbers behind the flow of funds by each system. I'll spend a little bit of time here on the first one, the electric system, and show you, because it's going to be essentially the same format for each system, but I'll hit the highlights here and then we'll just briefly cover the other systems. So for 24 in the electric system, we've got a little over $325 million in total revenues, about $190 million in total O&M expense, which in the electric system is split fairly evenly between O&M and fuel. And that leaves about $135 million in net revenue. And here is the section where we detail how we're going to spend that net revenue. In the electric system, just under $72 million is going to debt service. Another $28.7 million in that contribution to the utility plant improvement fund that I mentioned. The next line is the process that we put in place a year ago, whereby GRU is paying county street light bill, and then we are reducing from the transfer that same dollar amount, so GRU is essentially financially indifferent for that piece. Now, the question came up at the commission about what the impact would be on GRU if we were to pay the county street lights and not be reimbursed by reducing the transfer. It's about 0.75% in the electric system, because this is a purely electric system expense. This next line is new as well. This is the loss absorbed from GRUCOM. As you're aware, we've been talking about this for a while. GRUCOM has been experiencing losses on an annual basis, for a number of years. It's projected to do the same going forward. Its revenues are flattening. Its expenses are not keeping pace and falling off. It's got a fairly heavy debt load. It's essentially operating now as a shared service. It provides a core function for our lines of business, in that it's got infrastructure that they need to operate. But at this point in its life cycle, it's It's simply not appropriate for us to keep representing that on our financial statements as a negative reserve in the GRUCOM area. So what we've done, and what you see depicted here, we have allocated GRUCOM losses to each of the other systems based on their respective share of total revenues. So you're going to see that line on every system. When we get to the GRUCOM slide, you'll see a negative number. That negative number represents the accumulation of all the other positive expenses from the other systems. The next set of numbers breaks out in detail what we're going to use to either defease debt or pay cash for capital projects that we would otherwise have borrowed for. You can see the first line is excess reserves. That's associated with the base rate increases. You see it here in the electric system, 3%. They were initiated in 22. Our financial plan has them going through 27. They are a primary principal component of that $315 million net debt reduction. It makes up, over the next decade, it makes up about a quarter of that $315 million. Here's the budget reduction piece we talked about. If you look at it on average, the 28.2 million over decades, a little over 2.8 million. In 24, we've identified $3.4 million in cuts that the general manager walked through with you on May 15th. This is the electric system portion of that, about 2.2 million. The next line is the government service contribution reduction. That's what's being generated from the change in the formula. And then the 2020 defeasance plan. Back in 2020, GRU executed 7 financial restructurings, which generated a significant amount of savings. The general government executed a pension obligation bond, which also generated some savings for GRU. All of those savings are being used, and that's where they show up on this line, towards defeasing debt. So that's the electric system. Water system, same layout. You see about $42 million in total revenue, a little under $21 million in O&M expense, which leaves $21 million in net revenues, and here's how those net revenues are spent. Wastewater system's a little more robust, $56 million in revenue, about $26 million in O&M expense, leaving $30 million in net revenue, and here is the distribution of those net revenues. Gas is right at $28 million in revenue, $18 million in O&M expense, leaving us $10 million in net revenue, and then there's the payout. And then here's GRUCOM. As you can see, it's about $8.7 million in total revenues, about $9.5 million in expense, so we haven't fully allocated out their loss in 24. Here's the line I was talking about, and you can see it's a negative use of revenues. In other words, we reduced GRUCOM's expenses by allocating them into the other systems. And then finally, here's the combined system flow of funds. $460 million in total revenue, $264 million plus in O&M expense. About $157 million of that is O&M, the balance coming from fuel. Leaves $196 million in net revenues, and this is how it's spent. $103 million in debt service, $46 million in a contribution to the Utility Plant Improvement Fund. There's the $1.1 million reduction for the streetlight payment. $7.6 million in excess reserves that are coming from those base rate increases in electric and wastewater. Here's our $3.4 million budget reduction for 24. And there is the government service contribution reduction of $17 million, the defeasance plan, and then the government services contribution. Now, I want to point out, government services contribution is an absolute difference of about $19 million in 24, and you can see what we're picking up as a contribution reduction is about $17 million. If you recall, the commission had already put in place a $2 million annual step down in the transfer from 22 through 27. And so this $17 million represents the budgetary impact of that change, taking into account we had already forecast a $2 million reduction in the transfer. So once again, the next
Let me
steps.
pause you there for
Back to the last slide. So is 7.6 million the total that GRU will be receiving in additional revenue with a 3% and 5%?
That's the incremental rate change revenue for the 3% electric base rate increase and the 5% wastewater increase in '24.
Okay, so and all of that is going into, you said that is going into paying down debt, or that's going into the reserve, the excess
It's going
reserves?
in everything under this line, the debt defeasance, the next four excess reserves, budget reductions, government services contribution reduction, 2020 defeasance plan, that's all going into either to defease debt or to pay cash for capital projects so that we don't have to borrow going forward.
All right, that's it. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you. Good.
So next, like I said, 2 meetings in September. Look at the schedule of fees, rates, and charges, tentative budget resolution, and the final budget resolution. And the general manager's recommendation is that the commission approve the continuation of the base rate increases that were initiated in 22 through 27, 3% electric, 5% wastewater. Those base rate increases and the monies that are generated from them play a central role in several things. The general manager's already touched on them. Our net debt reduction plan, $315 million, our commitment to JLAC, our commitment to the Auditor General. But more importantly, they're a central part of the fabric of the long-term financial plan that we started putting in place in 22 when these base rate increases were put in. So we're asking for the continuation of the 3% and 5% base rate increases, as well as the connection fees and lighting increases, as Mr. Goodman covered in the May 22nd meeting. And I'll put those base rate increases a little bit in context. Remember, as we've gone through here, through this year, we've reduced the millage rate on the fuel side and the electric by about 30 mils. So that's about $30 on a standard bill. And speaking of standard bill, we put this together for both the average and the standard. The difference in average and standard is simply a difference in the consumption level. This shows the difference in the current bill as it sits today versus what the proposed bill will be in October. Purely for utility services. You can see on the electric side, it's about $2.50 a month. Oh, sorry, y'all can't see that. You can see. So $2.50 in electric, $2.25 in wastewater, and so about $4.75 a month in total for the average bill. For the standard, it's slightly more. The consumption is slightly higher. It's about $6.07 for a standard bill. As the clerk mentioned, we went to the UAB with this last night. They approved it unanimously, but there was one point of discussion that came up. If I can get the overhead. And I apologize, this is going to be difficult to see, so maybe you can zoom in a little bit. The point was made that the rate comparison that we put, or the rate change analysis that we put up there, ignored the fact that there are a significant number of items that are on the utility bill that aren't related to utility service. So what we have here is a comparison between what that total bill looked like October of 22 last year and what the proposed bill looks like in 23. And if you can bring it down just a little bit, that other direction, sorry. There you go. On the electric side, this is the breakout for what was in there October of 22. And here's the breakout for October of 23. You can see the rate increase of about 3% in the customer charge and the usage. You see a difference, a reduction on the fuel adjustment from 8 cents to 5 cents. So the bill goes from for an average residential user. Last October it was $158 plus. This October will be $136. Here's the gas service. No change in the service rates. Like I said, we dropped the millage on the purchase gas adjustment as well. So it went from 16 to 10. So you see a small decrease in the bill from $43 to $37. Water service, same thing, there's no change in the water, in the water bill, obviously no fuel there. Wastewater, we've got a 5% bump in the wastewater base rate, 50 cents, and the customer charge is also 5%, went from 45 to 47.25. And here's some of the other elements that are on that bill, the stormwater and the refuse. And we chose a 64-gallon container, for better or worse, that's what we chose. And 1 ERU for the stormwater. Last October, that bill was $41.65. This October, the proposed number will be $43.75. So the total bill amount with everything in there, and we've got a breakout of the gross receipts tax as well. It goes from $483 to $447. It drops from $313 last October to $290 this year. The utility portion of that goes from just under $254 to $228. So the utility portion of the proposed October bill makes up about 79% of the bill. Just under 20% of the bill goes to the city in these three pieces: utility tax, solid waste, and stormwater, and then the balance is in the gross receipts tax.
We'll pause you right there. Commissioner Book.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of quick questions. Mr. Benton, on the preceding slide, it was really a couple of terminology questions. We had the average bill and then the standard bill, and I see that there's figures different. What is what did that mean exactly? Standard.
An average bill is in the yellow at the bottom. An average bill is 800 kilowatt hours, 5 kgals of water and wastewater, and 20 therms of natural gas. A standard bill is 1,000 kilowatt hours, 7 kgals of water and wastewater, and 25 therms of natural gas. And the reason we use both is the average bill on the side is GRU's average bill. We also display our rates in terms of a standard bill because that's what we use when we compare ourselves to other entities, because that is a more typical consumption level.
Yeah, that explained what I wanted to know. So this is that's the comparison on the right side is what you look to compare against other utilities across the state.
Correct.
And then on the, thank you, that explained, I wasn't sure about that. Then the very next slide, when we look at all the various figures, and basically we're looking at the composite of a bill and all the components of a bill.
That's correct.
I'm really,
if we could get that overhead.
yeah, the overhead, thank you. There's probably no expectation. We're not looking to change that in any way, shape, or form, right? I personally feel like as we've been displaying it to the public, whether it has many things and many components, we don't want to change that to attempt to try and basically fool anybody. These are the rights, some are the city, some are different, electrification and water and wastewater. But we have them together for purpose of convenience for the people. But
I will say that at this point, GRU certainly is making no recommendation. I'll defer to the general manager about changing the components that are on that bill. It's not a simple process. It's been evaluated in the past. I'll just put it that way.
right, no attempt at this moment, given what we know, to attempt to change the bill, and all of a sudden multiple bills are coming when we have this opportunity for people to see all the various different charges that they have. Maybe not all related specifically to the utility, but certainly they help people understand what's the overall cost that I have for various different services.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, can I just jump in? So as Mr. Benton said, there's no recommendation at this time to make the change, such as removing stormwater or refuse from the bill. I think the advantages of having it on the bill are it's efficient, it optimizes the ability to bill, as opposed to setting up a whole nother billing system where you're billing for those services. We're able to collect those and pass those through to the different entities. So there's an efficiency and optimization there. The cons to it, the difficulties to it is that sometimes people see the bill and all they see is the number on the bottom, and they think, wow, look at my light bill or look at my GRU bill, and there's actually more things than that on there. And so that has been discussed in the past. I think that'll continue to be potential discussions as in the future, and we may do that. Mr. Benton mentioned
if you make changes like that, it's going to take a long time to make the changes. We would have to coordinate with the property appraiser's office and wait until another fiscal year comes along. So it'll be a longer term path, and that's something we can continue to evaluate. But the con to doing that is that you lose some of that efficiency and the optimization of having it all in one bill, and the ease for a person to see everything in one place.
No, I agree with all that, Mr. Manager. I'm in favor of us providing it in one system, so it basically your taxpayers and ratepayers see, even if it may not all be going to one place. I think it benefits the public in that regard, so I like it as it stands. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. So I do want to note that this represents a City of Gainesville resident bill. If you live in unincorporated Alachua County as a GRU customer, your solid waste and stormwater are billed differently. They go on your tax bill annually. So just it's an important point that confuses people sometimes. So, Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I believe beginning in April, citizens enjoyed a reduction in the fuel adjustment. Is that ending?
We look
What's
at
the status there?
we look at that every month. We analyze it. I will tell you, we've made significant progress. We have eliminated the negative fuel levelization balance. We've brought the millage rate down from 80 mils to 50 mils, as you pointed out. We continue to do that analysis. If, based on what we're seeing and what we're projecting at this point, it would not be a surprise if we bump that millage rate down again sometime in the near future. But like I said, we look at it every month. Fuel can be, as we saw in 22, can be particularly volatile. But based on what we're projecting now, we anticipate we may be able to lower it again.
Thank you. And I appreciate if you go back to the 800 kilowatt hours and the 1,000, showing what the monthly increase would be on the electric, wastewater, and what is, I can't see, I don't know, natural gas. I think that would be very helpful for citizens to be able to see that. I believe it was covered in the media as well. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Do you have anything to wrap up with us?
Yes, sir.
All right. So any other questions, any of the lights? Commissioner Willets.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question about the general service contribution under GRUCOM. And it slipped by me in the past, with a system previously as described as negative reserves, but now we're talking about those loss absorbed from GRUCOM going on the other systems. I know we portion out the GSC to each of the systems.
Yes.
Is that absolutely mandatory? Is it just really best practice? 'Cause it sometimes seems a little odd if you have a system that is in essence losing money, to then say, oh, more of that individual system revenue needs to go to the general services contribution.
It is, to say that it's only a best practice is probably not stating it strongly enough. Each one of the systems is generally required to stand on its own. But I will tell you, in the past, that GRUCOM has enjoyed a lower percentage of general fund transfer than their percentage of revenue would dictate. Those are questions that when we do that, we have to explain that and the why and the how for to the auditors. But yes, it's not mandatory. We can make that allocation in any way that we see fit, but it is, I would say it's more than a best practice, and it would be drawn into question by our external auditors if we started to arbitrarily make changes to that allocation.
But for this year, it's the same percentage allocation as suggested by the
They're
rate.
paying the allocation that they owe based on their percentage of revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Britton. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Commissioner Eastman.
Thank you. So this is my first merry-go-round on this. So this is now structured as you're requesting that we approve that you come back to us with an ordinance that changes this. So it's
Correct.
So there is now an ordinance in place that sets what our base rates are, correct? And this would be now creating a new ordinance that would set new base rates?
There'll be a new schedule of charges that comes to you in September, and you will also have a tentative budget resolution on the 7th and a final budget resolution on the 21st. I can defer to the general manager, but we brought this in this particular process so that if the commission expressed any issues with the manner in which we put this together, then we'd have time to pivot and make changes between now and September 7th.
Okay. And so it's September 7th, and I think there was a second reading, if I recall, September 21st. Okay. And so right now according to our charter, there is a separate authority that is overseeing us, and we're in sort of this weird middle ground between where we are overseeing the utility, but then there's also an authority that's coming in on October 1st that is free from our direction and control. Do we have the authority to pass an ordinance at this point that would have a relationship that would give direction to GRU in relationship to how they oversee their utilities? I guess this might be a question for Andy.
I was going to say, I'll defer, we are operating in that manner, but I'll defer to the city attorney for.
Mr. Mayor, frankly, there's no other way to operate, and even under the plain language of the charter as amended recently, it says that the Gainesville Regional Utilities shall be governed, and again, by that, we have to assume they mean the utility systems of the city. It's not otherwise defined as Gainesville Regional Utilities in your charter. But it shall be governed by the authority upon installation of the authority's members pursuant to this article of your charter. That power transfers upon the installation of the members of the board. Until then, by implication, you have to understand that the power stays where it is until it's transferred.
But theoretically, because we have an ordinance in place, if we took no action, that would be essentially just saying that the rates as they currently stand and the connection fees as they currently stand are stable at the level that they are, right? And I guess at that point, you'd be coming back to us September 7th with that. I mean, if we didn't take this action today, or I guess we'd be giving you direction in a different area. I mean, what would that look like?
If you don't take I want to make sure I understand. If you don't take the action
If we choose to, if we don't take any action today, or if we gave you, we're now asking us for direction as to where we would like to go or how you would like for us to come back to us with that ordinance, I guess is what I'm asking. That's all the questions I have for now, Mr. Mayor, but I might have a couple more here.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Somewhat along those same lines, if the city attorney could share with us what the, I don't want to say likelihood, but what the ability of this new board would be to come back and reverse what we may do here today would be.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the new Article 7 of your charter, which was passed by special act of the legislature, the authority, after they're installed, which is anticipated to be October 4th, does have the power to establish and amend the rates, fees, assessments, charges, rules, regulations, and policies governing the sale and use of services provided through the utilities. That's what it says. What we have to get straightened out, what we're trying to get straightened out, is the mechanics of how an appointed board would do that, exercise those legislative powers of a municipality despite not being elective. But the plain language of the Article 7 of your charter would give that power to establish and amend rates, fees, assessments, charges, so forth, to the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority Board.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Eastman.
So essentially, we're just setting rates now about 2 weeks before installation of this authority, unless something were to happen with the court case that could then be amended on October 4th, essentially. If that was at the discretion, if that was the decision of this new GRU authority that is coming in. Like they could amend that immediately upon installation. They can make any changes.
I think that the authority, again, the appointed board termed the authority under Article 7 of your charter, could effort to exercise that power given in 7.03 1B to establish and amend the rates. How that happens is what we will have to learn, because again, it is a legislative power that I'm not aware how an appointed board can exercise that authority, but that's what we're seeking a declaration of.
Okay. And so we would seek clear relief, and then theoretically hopefully by the implementation of this board, we would know whether it's standing or not standing, and where we're going from there. That's all my questions, at least for now, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Willetts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know who this is a question for, but the city of Gainesville, we only set rates and fees once per year, once per our budget year.
We can do it more often than that.
Can we?
Correct. So we typically bring rates
Back for in the spring and summer to be set for the new fiscal year. And that's what we're doing now, but we could do it other times of the year. But we have not done that historically.
Okay, I'm sure customers like some sense of predictability. Obviously, fuel adjustment changes based on the cost of fuel, but they like that predictability. It sounds like we traditionally once a year. Investor-owned utilities in Florida can change multiple times per year, correct? If they as well, pending approval by the Public Services Commission?
So they have to go through the Public Service Commission. I'm not sure what the restrictions are on how often that can be done. I don't know if.
No, but you're correct. They have to take rate cases to the PSC to get a change.
Right, so they take it to the Public Service Commission. We don't have to take it because we are a municipal utility, correct?
Right.
We are elected until this bill, the decision makers are elected by the owners in free and fair elections. Used to be once a year, but now once every 2 years. I just wanted to kind of understand that about, it sounds crazy in a city where we've set them usually once per year. Just even the idea that someone could be setting it, changing it at different points. It sounds a little crazy, and obviously, as expressed by most of us up here, and definitely by me, it is definitely crazy that the people who could potentially make that decision later in the year have never received a vote, at least for that position, have never received a vote from a single voter in the city of Gainesville. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Thank you, Mr. Benton. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
So, Commissioner Willetts and everyone, the only time that I'm aware of that we changed the rates during the course of the year, other than at the beginning of the fiscal year, was in January of 2018. We lowered electric rates right around 10%. It may have been exactly 10%, or may have been a little bit off, following the purchase of the biomass plant. Okay, I see no other lights. Madam Clerk, do we have public comment?
I do not have any cards turned in.
I'm sorry, I'm not used to this.
That's okay. We have Chuck Ross.
Mr. Ross, if you want to go ahead. Well,
Hey, good afternoon. Chuck Ross. I had a couple of things, and I've brought one of these things up before. One of the terms that you're using in relation to the ratio is capitalization rate. Now I've been made to understand that in the industry of utilities, that term is used. But generally speaking, it's a rate that's used to determine the market value of real estate that you're trying to sell. It's not associated with what is being used here, which is your net debt over your net assets. That's actually called a debt-to-asset ratio. And in fact, if you're going to continue to use the term capitalization rate, then you need to change the formula around, because it's actually the inverse of the number you're using. It's not 87 or 84% or whatever number you're using. It's actually 14 to 16% is your capitalization, and you're trying to achieve a rate of 30%, the inverse of the 70%. And I think that's confusing to the end users. The other thing I wanted to go over was there's costs that are paid between GRU and general government, which are indirect costs. Has nothing to do with the general transfer fee or the general contribution fee or whatever. In other words, the 34 million, which is now 15 million. These are other costs that are incurred, which is normal because there are certain costs on the general government side that should be allocated to GRU, and there are certain costs on the GRU side that probably should be allocated to general government. The problem is I was listening to the July 27th meeting, and I understand there are something like 30 some odd agreements in place and these costs are only discussed among the staff and they're not brought to the commission. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying, in the world of transparency, it would be informative if we understood better what comprise these indirect costs. And it could be that they're high, could be they're low. I'm not suggesting that they're anything other than that. I think JLAC did complain that they were excessive, but there's no way of understanding whether that's a correct finding or not, because if you look, as an end user of the financial statements, I can't figure out what those costs are. They go back and forth. I've been told that they're in the transfers. But when you see transfers between funds, we don't know what those transfers are comprised of. So I think I beat that horse to death. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention, see if there's anything else. Oh, yes. Well, I heard that tonight we learned that there's going to be rate increases. You recently hired a firm, Baker Tilly, to analyze the rate increases. Is this as a result of their study, or is that study still coming down the line? Somebody can get back to me on that. And let me see if there's anything else. That's about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you want to address the Baker Tilly?
Sure. So the Baker Tilly was recently hired to do a cost of service study. So that's underway. It's not complete. That cost of service study really allocates out, each rate class, how many expenses and our revenues associated with those to determine what the rate should be. We do that internally every single year. Periodically, every 3 to 4 or 5 years, we hire an external firm like Baker Tilly, and so we're doing that external analysis right now, and it's not finished, so it is not part of setting the rates this year.
Thank you. Mr. Conish.
Mr. Mayor, Jim Conish. I have numerous accounts with GRU, and I pay the bills for dozens of tenants and rebuild them. So I'm there as always. I'm here as always on their behalf as well, and I like enough time to provide you with really valuable analysis. Over the last year, if you look at all Florida municipal and investor-owned utilities, you are second only to Key West in how much 1,000 kilowatt hours costs before your increase. So this probably will put you at the very top of the pile. And this is the community that's not known for high income throughout all sectors. Before these increases, just for being connected to all 5 major services, and you take the customer charge and the pyramiding of the taxes and everything, you're going to be at $90. You're going to take off. I'm sorry.
I just thought you might want to turn it for us. There you go.
You're going to be taken off from $90. Now, what you didn't mention is the stormwater and the garbage is tied to the electric meter. For most situations, there are a few exceptions where you can get out of the garbage if you're a residential customer. So the 96-gallon cart and the stormwater is going to go to $43.75, and that on top of the customer charges with all the taxes, you're taken off on your electric meter from nearly $60 or $70 because of the tying. The tenants are paying for my stormwater, and that's not equitable. GRU has trouble tracking annexations, and your auditor has found that out. GRU does not collect the fees when their debts go bad, and there's lots of those, so you never get the money. GRU charges the city twice as much as the property appraiser to collect the fees, twice as much. I don't believe under our charter it's appropriate to use GRU as a collection agent for anything, because that's what this is all about. separating from GRU from the city and putting it under independent, competent governance that represent all ratepayers of GRU, not just one party executive council. What is deeply troubling to me is that you're proposing to take 15 million as a transfer, and you don't even look at your charter, which now puts a cap on that number. That doesn't even get into the question that the authority doesn't have to give you a dime. And if you turn things over in a convoluted mess because you don't understand what has happened, I doubt the authority is going to be generous with any transfer. Now, this is the one that you're just ignoring. GRU must be rendered free from the direction and control of the Gainesville City Commission. How could the city attorney represent the authority when he's in court trying to disenfranchise the authority? The answer is nobody connected with the city attorney can represent the authority. As a matter of fact, what's going to happen if the same people are going to provide support services to GRU, they're going to have to work under the GRU. He's now the CEO, GM, but he has no power. But he has a nice title. And he keeps his pay and he keeps his benefits. And the authority is going to utilize who's ever sitting in that seat when they take power. And to put it another way,
I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
when the authority meets, the only person sitting up there is the sitting CEO, general manager. Everyone else is gone.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please. But
I will wrap up. I have much more, but I'll
Significantly
come
extra
to the
time.
regular meetings and finish my presentation.
Great. I had one question for you, though.
Sure.
Did you, by chance, bring a comparison of water, wastewater charges or natural gas charges?
My focus is on electric because it's such a large percentage
Right.
of the bill I pay. I'm sure across the board, your prices are reasonable. With electric, you're not.
Okay. Well, thanks for
Thank you.
For that, and
Thank you.
it would be great if next time you could bring that along, though, because it is part of the bill.
No, I'm not
So-
really interested in that. I'm interested
Okay.
in seeing a government that complies with their own charter. I'm not interested in seeing you guys thrown out of office, by the way.
Okay.
I don't think that would be a good thing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Commissioner Eastman, actually, Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else?
That was our last speaker, Mayor.
That
Mr. Eastman.
that was a shame. I was partially going to respond to Mr. Conish that we are actually the seventh. We are below. I don't know which chart he chose to pick from that particular one, but we are $10 less than the average investor-owned utility at the moment. Since I was brought into office, along with Ed Book, Casey Willits, and Mayor Ward when they were sworn in, your GRU bill at 1,000 kilowatt hours has decreased $30 a month. That's $30 a month more that people have in their pockets. We're cheaper than Duke, Florida Power and Light, Northwest Florida, cheaper than Ocala, cheaper than Florida Public Utilities, cheaper than a number of other electric utilities, based on the same exact series of charts that he was trying to show there, but selected one that looked worse. We are seventh. Yes, we're the seventh highest, and there's a number of other cities that are higher than us. Just wanted to make that point quick out of the gate, but Mr. Conish escaped before I could make that while he was here. I mean, I'm nervous about voting for this just based on kind of where we are. I feel like we have been told in no uncertain terms by the legislature that the governor will be in ownership and control, full oversight of our utilities going forward. And that has been the intent of the bill. That is where our charter currently stands. I think we have made a number of very bold moves here at the city of Gainesville. We've cut $19 million from our budget in order to ensure that we are complying with a bold move of $315 million in deficit reduction. We are at this point, as I pointed out in a previous meeting, subsidizing GRU to the point of $11 million. $26 million is what they would be paying in taxes and franchise fees. Now our residents are paying for that difference in taxes. And we've cut 86 positions from our overall city. And so as of July 1st, GRU is free from the direction and control of the city. And they can change rates the moment that they come in. I think that the attorney has made that clear. And so I would hate we are now in sort of the last act here as the governing body of our utility that has been a utility that is owned by the people it serves for over 100 years. During that time period, I'm really proud of the work that we've done. We've brought over 75 megawatts of solar on. We have cut GRU bills by a significant amount, as I mentioned before. We still maintain very high bond ratings with very good finances. And I wouldn't want one of the last actions that the people take as the direct overseers of GRU through us to be, raising up GRU rates once again. I think if this gets tossed out, I would like to see the GRU general manager come back and talk to us about where we are. But I think we have done our part in order to ensure that we are going to the Joint Legislative Auditing Committee, that we're bringing them back a deficit reduction plan that is bold. And I think it is kind of up to the authority when they are installed, literally 2 weeks after this would be going into effect, what they want to do with this, which could be, could be deficit reduction. I hope that they do that, because that is what they said the purpose of this was to be. But we shall see. But I feel uncomfortable making this decision considering where we are, and I would like to. I don't know what that looks like. This is my first time go around on the budget, but I think that this is a decision that Governor Ron DeSantis and his political appointees can determine when they come in. So that's my only feedback. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Eastman. Mr. Cunningham, did you want to weigh in there?
Yeah, so I want to just clarify, I guess, a couple of things. What we're bringing to you is to stay on the plan for the rate increases. But it's more than that. It's the overall budget and the plan for the utility to continue to provide services that we provide. And so what we're bringing to you as staff and what I'm bringing to you as a general manager is this recommendation to adopt this budget and the associated rate increases and fees associated with that, so that we can continue to provide reliable electricity, water, wastewater, natural gas, and telecommunication services to our customers. And so that is a strong recommendation that we approve that and continue to go forward as we transition to the board, and to have that in place. The other thing is we can't stay on the path of the debt reduction plan. This budget and the rate increases associated with it are part of that plan. And so we can't stick to the commitments we made to JLAC and the Auditor General of our debt reduction plan without this approval from the City Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Cunningham. Commissioner Willis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Manager Cunningham. It sounds like you and your staff and GRU possibly have a greater commitment to reliable service than people who drafted the bill, that leads us in a position that we're a little that we're dealing with in interesting ways. I, along with like Commissioner Eastman, I'm a little I don't know if the word is worried or disturbed that we are asked to raise rates. And then on October 4th, they can change, a new authority can change how those revenues are then spent. Typically, we raise rates, we set rates, and we say this is how we're going to spend it. This is how we're going to fund our capital improvement. This is how much debt we want to pay down. This is how much we put in reserves. This is what we want to do. And so it's one thing if we are say, we raise rates and we stick to our plan, but to raise the rates, and I guarantee you, if we raise the rates now, but the authority changes how it is spent, so we in general, we set the revenue and they're going to decide how it's spent. No matter what it gets spent on, whatever they decide, whether they decide they're not going to pay off debt because for whatever reason, maybe they want more reserves, whether they speed things up that we had planned out over many years, whether they decide that they're going to have 100% cash funding of capital projects. No matter what they decide, I guarantee you they will take all credit for those whatever it is decisions, bright, shiny. Maybe they build us another depot park. Maybe they dump all their money into the Southwest Park Nature Park. Something bright and shiny for people to see. It's going to be a wonderful project, I'm sure. But they could dump all their money into that right now, take all the accolades for that. But they, at least this year, will not be the people who are who have to answer for the rate increase, because we will have passed the rate increase. So it's very convenient for them. I would have loved if that bill would have clearly said that at least for this year, what we set, but we can't go back. We can't go back to that bill and say, please, Representative Clemens, make it so that when we set the rate this year, because the people voted us in and we're setting the rate, please let that go for a full year with expenses, our budget, let it go for a year. I wish it was like that, but it's not. So I share Commissioner Eastman's reticence to vote on rates now, but at the same time, we are still tasked with our normal project of passing a budget in the city, and that budget includes all of these things. In any normal year, our budget includes GRU, though it is a odd thing to say that we are not supposed to have control over GRU, but we are supposed to pass a budget. And I think I need to fall on the side of it is our responsibility. I was elected to pass a budget, though I am elected to, and I swore to uphold our charter, with the current inconsistencies, I'll say, in a charter as forced by the state government. I still think that we're going to have to pass something. That includes GRU, that includes rates and fees going into our next fiscal year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Williams. You good? Okay. Commissioner Chestnut.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, we have quite a conundrum here. We have been charged by the Joint Legislative Audit Committee to address our debt and to address it responsibly. And we started back in the spring with a 10-year plan, implementing a 10-year plan to address that debt reduction. We cannot have the debt reduction unless we stick to this plan for 10 years. If the incoming authority wants to unravel it, that's going to fall on them. I think the responsible thing for us is to protect our citizens as much as we can. And we can protect our citizens that's why I wanted to see the monthly increase to people. We can protect our citizen, which is what we have been doing with this 10-year commitment to reduce the debt, which all of us inherited, to reduce it. We have a debt reduction, a very sound debt reduction plan. We are responding to JLAG. I have never supported rate increases since I've been on this board. But I must this time for the sake of the citizens, and I must in order to protect our system. But I think the debt reduction, the JLAG answer, and the 10-year commitment to debt reduction is and the response to the formula, I'm talking about the 10-year formula, is what I think that we have to fall on here. So that's where I am. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Chestnut. Commissioner Book.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So just a couple more comments. So I do agree these budget decisions are very complex. They're challenging, and they're extremely difficult. And I really dislike the fact that here we are sitting up here and they're considering the fact that we're about to increase rates in two of our areas of the utility. And I know that it impacted, we talked on the city side of all the positions that have been impacted and what we're doing to basically right-size city government, right? From a few years of expansion and cost increase. I know we've done that. I think Commissioner Eastman, you mentioned we're probably in the 80s for positions on the city side. And I was trying to remember, as part of this right-sizing GRU and debt defeasance and getting us back on a path that's, I would call it more responsible. Where are we on the GRU side with our positions and people as far as part of this plan that Mr. Benton laid out for us?
Yes, so Mr. Mayor, we presented on May 15th, and we are consistent with that plan of cost reduction. It is, we unfunded 20 positions at GRU, and that will continue. It may not be the exact same 20, but there are going to be 20 positions unfunded as we go through the 10-year plan. And then in addition to that, we have other non-labor expenses that we reduced as well.
All right, well, thank you for that. And so, given this, we also do have this advisory board that is helping us in the process. And we were recognizing one of the advisory boards, not a week ago, and this is another one that's doing a lot of work behind the scenes, the Utility Advisory Board. I don't think we need to read their names for probably different reasons tonight, but we do need to thank them for the fact that we have people who are kind of analyzing things and working with our utility to give us this information. So I think that probably is some public acknowledgement of them. We're sharing the pain up here. There's no doubt about that. And with this decision making, it's difficult. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. So I would say that under the best of circumstances, it is never easy or simple to vote for a rate increase, ever. I think this is my 7th vote for one of these, and it's never, no matter which side you fall on, it's never pleasant or simple. I do want to reiterate, this is the recommendation of our professional staff. We have, I believe, excellent professional staff. We have consistently, whenever we have voted to increase rates, it's not because a group of elected officials, a group of politicians want to be unpopular by raising rates. It's because in the judgment of our professional staff, they think that it is best for the utility, for the health of the utility, to raise rates. No matter how unpopular that may be in the court of public opinion, that's their professional recommendation. Supported, as Commissioner Book pointed out, by our Utility Advisory Board. We, as a body, a few months ago, agreed to a resolution that we would implement, as Commissioner Chestnut pointed out, a debt reduction program. We accepted that unanimously, I believe. This is part of that. We knew then that this was part of that. Commissioner Eastman, I completely hear you. I understand where you're coming from on it, and it is frustrating that we don't have any certainty that if we pass staff recommendation tonight and move ahead with changing the rates in September, that they will stay the same. We don't know. I choose to believe that the new authority will abide by the debt reduction plan. But whether they do or not is not anything we can control. What we can control is whether or not we stick with the plan that we agreed to. That's going to cost our average user, not as compared to the rest of the state, but the average user here in Gainesville, less than $5 a month. Now, $5 a month is real. That's not, you can do things with $5 a month, but that's the actual cost here. And the cost of not doing that is that we then need to go back and without any outside pressure, make changes to the debt reduction plan that we passed in resolution. So I think those are the options that we have. And with those options, I'm going to have to support, assuming somebody makes the motion, an increase of 3% to the electric system and 5% to the wastewater system. Commissioner Eastman.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciated what you said about professional staff. And I appreciate all the time that everyone has put into this. I remember when former GRE General Manager Ed Bilarski came forward with these annual increases as a way to try to stop the bond reductions, and I know how much work was put into that by him and his staff, and so I have always appreciated that. I do think that there's, as we said, that and as I said, this is my first time going through all of this, but this has always gone, these changes in the ordinances and the fees have always gone hand in hand with the budget increases. And I think that as a new authority is coming in and they are saying that they have some kind of an answer for how they can reduce budgets, how they can reduce the deficit, there's some kind of a magic formula in which they don't have to raise rates in order to do that, and there's some kind of a magic formula where they don't have to take money for the funding that goes to our police and our firefighters and our first responders, that maybe they will have some kind of a silver bullet when they come in that will allow them to solve all of the complicated issues that our professional staff has worked so hard at. And that is something that I think that's something that they could really wrestle with when they come in. I understand why everyone else is, because we have worked hard on this, and it is important that we come forward with it. It feels like we are between a rock and a hard place of trying to figure out how do we govern a city that is soon to be taken half away and given to the governor of the state, and how do we ensure that our residents are taken care of, and how do we ensure that we are representing our constituents. And I just so it's a hard pill to swallow, but and I appreciate everyone's thoughts here. That's it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I would also point out that there are circumstances that make it necessary to consider changes to that plan. I don't think we're in one of those circumstances now, but last year, for instance, we had massive increases to the fuel surcharge that were already significantly impacting our users, our residents, our owners. But that has been mitigated. We've been able to lower the fuel surcharge, and that being the case, I think this is a reasonable increase. It's less than inflation. Everything else costs more money. The price of a gallon of milk or a dozen eggs has gone up by a higher percentage than we're talking about right here. So I don't see any lights, but we're not going to do anything if we don't have a motion for it. So there you go. Commissioner Chestnut, thank you.
All right, let's see where we go. Mr. Mayor, I move staff's recommendation, and that is continuation of base rate increases initiated as part of fiscal year 22 budget at 3% electric and 5% wastewater. 2, connection fees and lighting increases as covered in the May 22nd budget meeting with the City Commission.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? Commissioner Book.
I guess nobody wants their name on this particular thing. I'll second it, and I don't like it one bit.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. All right, we have no further lights, and we've already heard public comment. All in favor of the staff recommendation, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
All right, that passes 6-1 with Duncan Walker in dissent. Madam Clerk, what else do we have?
We have member comment, Mayor.
I see no lights from member comment, so thank you. What? Hold on. Yeah, Commissioner Book's good? Yeah, all right. Commissioner Book?
This has zero to do with what we're doing here this afternoon. I just want to mention that there'll be plenty of time for, pats on the back and what we're doing for the action plan that comes out of the summit. I know we'll be talking about that next week. Tremendous work by a lot of folks and leadership by the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem. But germane to that is tomorrow public school's open. There's 20,000 students that are going to be around. It's the first day. It's students, staff, community, traffic, you name it. And I just hope that we're that everybody who has any influence and any leverage or is involved in any way works their best to make sure that we have a safe first week and certainly a safe first day.
Thank you, Commissioner Book. Commissioner Willis?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On that note, Commissioner Book, I posted a graphic on my Instagram about when you have to stop for a school bus on what types of roads. Remind yourself of what schools are in your neighborhood or what stops are somewhere in your route on your normal day when you're driving. I did want to speak out to all of our residents and all of our customers of GRU. We talked about today mostly the kind of the brass tacks of just the budget, the money, the rates. But I want you to know that it's hard. It's hard to vote for a rate increase, particularly when we're not going to have as much control in the future, or no control after October 1st or the first meeting of the new authority. So this was hard for me to vote on because, particularly because we won't have the control. But this is a plan that started well before. I almost wanted to adjust the recommendation so that it could be read in that who formulated those FY22 budget increase of 3% and a 5% wastewater because it is commissioners in the past. It is a general manager in the past that goes into this because this is a long-term process that we embarked on. Perhaps it was not in FY22 budget written as a 10-year debt reduction, but it was a plan because it does come all together. Our staff at GRU have managed all the moving pieces. That it's about our debt. It's about what our bond holders, what they have to say and think and sometimes perhaps just even feel. It's about a changing worldwide energy market. What led us towards here, decisions in the past about what kind of generation we build, what kind of generation we are contracting people to build in the future. It's about what kind of city we want, what kind of water quality we want, not just the water quality we drink, but the water we put back in the aquifer, above and beyond regulation, about truly what we want to do, the values we have as a city. Up until now, GRU has been able to represent our values, not merely assigning dollar amounts to GRU, but our values, because if we value clean water or clean air or a survivable environment, we can put that value into GRU, and in the future, evidently, it won't be there. So what we do tonight, how I voted, how I'm sure everyone else voted, there's a lot that goes into it, but I just want our customers and our neighbors to know, at least for me, it has been great being able to have some influence on GRU as we go forward, even if I lose a motion. But to be able to be the person who can propose something, even if it doesn't pass, it's sad to lose that. It would be very easy to be a commissioner who never had to vote for a rate increase because this 1 year I could just not vote for it. And then it sounds like I'm never going to have to vote for it again in the next 3 years of my term. But that kind of cowardice is not why voters voted for me. I think voters can handle hard decisions if it's explained to them, and they know you're still in it for the right reasons. So this sucks, but the GRU authority might suck even more. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To switch topics completely, 6:30 tonight, Martin Luther King Jr. Center, a community engagement experience around the Cultural Arts Center. I have my bag on my shoulder because that is where I'm running out the door to. And I hope to see everybody who is willing and able to be there. We're very, very excited about this project that I believe will be transformational. So thank you, Madam Manager, for the work that you have done on this. I'm excited about the conversation and seeing where this goes. We're going to see where this goes. I certainly am looking forward to continuing to be whatever kind of influence I can be in it. But thank you very much, and I'm on my way.
Thank you, Commissioner. So before we close out here, I want to mention a couple things. First of all, thank you, Commissioner Book, for mentioning the schools opening tomorrow. Be a little patient in your commute, everybody. There are lots of babies out there new on their bicycles and walking to school, and the school buses are going to be they're going to slow you down, but it's okay. It'll be okay. Commissioner Willits, you talked about GRU representing our values over the years. One of the ways we've been able to express those values is the city of Gainesville has consistently elected folks with the understanding that we needed to care about the environment, that climate change was a real thing. I want to bring that to a real personal level today. As I was reading headlines, I was thinking about my friend Mayor Rick Bisson of Maui County, Hawaii, and watching a video of countrymen of ours, of our fellow neighbor Americans leaping into the Pacific Ocean to avoid a wildfire that was consuming their island. As difficult as raising rates is, we could be in a whole lot worse. You know, we have countrymen who are losing everything right now. And there's more and more of that happening on a more regular basis. We see the effects of global climate change. And whether it's that or any kind of other natural or other human-made disaster, as when I go to bed tonight, my prayers and my best thoughts go out to folks who are experiencing that sort of thing. Commissioner Duncan Walker.
Mr. Mayor, I did not want to be remiss as I'm walking out of the door to say thank you to everybody who came out to the Gun Violence Prevention Summit. We had a wonderful time. It was wonderful to see all of the community and all of the partners who came out to walk with us in what is going to be a process towards moving us to stemming this issue. We had a lot of great conversation and even ideas around that, and I want to make sure that everyone knows that there is a joint city-county meeting coming up on the 28th. Hopefully you will come and attend that as well, because part of that conversation will continue at that meeting, and ideally we will be able to move some things forward there. But wanted to say thank you to everybody who helped to put that on and everyone who came out. I had a really great time, and I have a lot of hope moving forward.
Very good. Thank
Thanks.
you. Okay, we will have, I will have more to say about the Gun Violence Summit tomorrow, and I hope to see you all back up here, and everybody tuning in again tomorrow on Channel 12 at 1 o'clock. Thank you. We are adjourned.